is you can see me though, right?
Yeah.
Oh, I see you right now. There you go, live and direct. Let me put the link in the Facebook, the proper link now.
Okay.
Because I had a few people already went to the interview and they kicked off.
Oh, sorry.
But it's not your fault. It's mostly likely my fault. But this is what happens when you go live and direct. We're live on YouTube right now. We live.
Okay.
So
Okay, great.
this is what happens when I go live and I don't edit my videos. A lot of people they got the editing work down packed and everything.
Oh.
But I like to go I like to go live. I like to keep it real. That's why I call my YouTube channel The Real Nordic Black. It's like
Oh.
some people call it an oxymoron, but I don't, because when they say The Real Nordic Black, and then that's when I get them to read a little bit more into certain things about how Scandinavia really looked like back then, if it was so blonde hair and blue eyed and all that stuff. But that's a whole nother subject. Welcome, Dr. Leo Igwe. Leo Igwe, am I saying it correctly? I'm not butchering the Igwe.
Yeah. You're trying. Igwe.
All right. Hey, your fellow diasporan brother. I'm trying to do it. Yeah, I got him in the building finally. It's great to see you. He's in Nigeria right now. You're in Nigeria right now, right?
Yes, I'm in Nigeria right now. Yes.
In Lagos, right?
Yes, I'm in Lagos. Yes.
Lagos.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so yeah, I would love for you to he's the African humanist. He has many other titles. I'm sure of the witch hunter.
Yeah. The hunter of witch hunters.
Right. Yeah. I've ran across you in one of your videos. I think I saw you on TED Talk first.
Okay.
The global TED Talk.
Yeah.
And I didn't link that or remember that when I later on when I went and clicked on the James Randi Foundation YouTube channel. It was like maybe a late night or something. I was bored or whatever, and I wanted to listen to something dealing with skepticism or atheism and religion or whatever.
Exactly.
And went to James Randi. Let me see what James Randi. I think my suggestion popped up again. I said I haven't went to his channel again. I'll subscribe to it for a long time. And James Randi, may you rest in power. I haven't went to that channel since after his passing. And when I went on there, I know they were trying to keep up with that channel, still talk about certain subjects, pseudoscience and things. I remember that. And then another day I went around there and I looked down and I saw videos of a black man. I was like, hold on. Stop the press. I didn't see that right. Let me go back. What? They just got off of James Randi. I had James Randi on there. Why? What's going on with this black guy right here? And then that's when I saw your name, and I'm ashamed because I didn't really know about you. But I like I said it the TED Talk, but I didn't realize that was you.
Okay.
So yeah, and then I went around, and then on Facebook I started to realize that there was a lot of people that we got kind of like some mutual friends and some mutual people that know about you. And then when I did a little bit of research, I realized that you one of the ladies on my channel that I interviewed, the Afro Humanist, Nigerian, Esther.
Yeah, I know.
Right. And you shared like a little panel or whatnot on the atheist I think Alliance South Africa or something like that.
Exactly.
On that channel, the Atheist Alliance International out of South Africa, and then y'all were talking about certain things, and so you definitely know, and you know a bunch of people. You link to a bunch of these. You went mainstream, and so obviously everybody knows about you, and I didn't.
Now you do. Now you do.
Yeah, for sure. And so with that being said, I'm sure besides the skeptics and atheists that are on my Facebook or YouTube channel, they know about you, a lot of them. but then you got some African American brothers and sisters that don't, religious ones that don't know about you. And so I want to bring you to my audience. So I believe my audience is it's kind of got a world following, but mainly probably American, and also the diasporan, the American diasporan, African diasporan, also Scandinavia, because I'm out here in Oslo, Norway. Although I'm African American. Anyway, could you tell me just a little bit history and background of yourself? I know you go as the African humanist or whatnot.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be with you and to be with your followers. And thank you also, for creating this platform. And I want to let you know that we don't have too many platforms where
Tell me about it.
Yeah, Africans who are atheists or rationalists or skeptics, you know, can just speak their mind freely. Yeah.
Facts.
Facts. Yeah. So I'm so excited, you know, that we are getting some of these channels, we are getting some of these platforms, we are getting some of these, you know, fora, you know, to really say what we think. Because too often, growing up, I have read what people think I am, either as a Nigerian or as an African, and I have read a lot about how people think I think, without actually hearing from me, you know, because actually there's virtually no platform. So growing up, I was born in southeastern Nigeria, and I grew up in a village. And by, you know, going for my education made me also to travel outside my locality. I was originally training to be a priest, not because I chose to, but because my mother took me to the seminary because she thought that was maybe where I could go and get some good education. Yeah, but I think I took the education, but I later threw away the indoctrination. So in the course of growing up, you know, a lot of people cannot make a distinction between education and indoctrination. Education is all about leading you out of ignorance, leading you out of prejudices, free your mind.
Right.
Yeah, but indoctrination is all about locking up your mind, putting you in a cage, and people letting you to dictating for you how to think. So growing up, I read a lot about Africans. I read about Nigerians. I read a lot about what people think we are or what people thought we were. Okay. And I disagree with those things. Yes. But meanwhile, those who wrote those things were authorities, were anthropologists, were scientists, were historians. But what they wrote was a misrepresentation. Yes. I'm doing what I'm doing because I think that there has been a lot of misrepresentation, not only of Nigerians or Africans by non-Nigerians and Africans, but even over the years, Africans themselves and Nigerians themselves, they have internalized their misrepresentation. So that what I'm doing today is this. Here I am. Ask me what I think. Allow me to present myself. Stop presenting me. Yes. So that is why from early age, I try to take time to read, try to understand. You know, it was a typically religious environment, and religious environment is always an environment where people tell you what to think, even when you think otherwise, what to believe, even when you believe otherwise, how to think, how to present yourself, even when you want to present yourself differently. Okay. So I was struggling with this, and I found out that one of the most harmful mechanisms being used to misrepresent an African, a Nigerian, a Black person is religion.
Absolutely.
Yes. Yeah, it's religion. Now look, Black people have their religion, Africans have their religions, Nigerians have their religions, but there is this tyranny embedded in the religious discourse.
And we're gonna get into that.
Yeah. Okay. So and it's like, why should that be? Yes. So I said, I from growing up, I'm training to be a priest. I started reading, and I read a lot about philosophies, and I learned about people. And what I found out was people are telling their own story in their own way. They are also telling my own story in their own way. You get what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
So I said, no, tell your story your way. I tell my story my way. Don't tell my story your way.
I know that's right. Yeah.
There I am. So that was what inspired me. I started growing up. You have so many religions, and these religions are always linked to some people. Islam is linked to Arab. And people from that region, they enslaved Africans at some point in the past.
Absolutely.
Christianity linked to the Europeans and Americans, and these are those who enslaved Africans. And we have about colonialism. And these are also an effort to also dictate how people govern themselves, how they see themselves, and who is higher and who is lower, and all that. So for me, being a humanist is like my quest to be free. Yes. And my quest to be myself. And my quest to say what I think about Arabs, about Americans, about Africans, about Islam, about Christianity. Now, look, one of my, most, if I should say, disturbing, realization is that Christianity and Islam Africans have internalized Christianity and Islam to the point that, number one, they demonize African traditional religious beliefs and norms.
Absolutely.
Okay? Now, I'm not saying that, I'm going to embrace African religious norms and deities. No. But what I noticed that these religions are linked to people's understanding. So many years ago, now they dogmatized that. Now they came here. They did not only tell us how to govern ourselves, they also tell us the God to worship. They made us to lose faith and confidence in ourselves, in our own religion, and in our own deities. And they handed down to Africans, okay, your deities are not real. That fetish. Look at the real gods. Worship them. And they did not bring this religion with peace. They brought it with violence. Violence to structural violence, physical violence. And do you know the tragedy? The tragedy is not that these religions were introduced. The tragedy is that Africans have internalized these religions with their self-degradation, low self-esteem for Black people and all that. And this kind of a situation where Black people now look down on themselves, dehumanize themselves.
Absolutely.
In the name of a religion that was used to dehumanize them. There's this thing Germans said, they said, das geht nicht. I said, no way, that can't work. That can't work. And this is where, for me, humanism from the African perspective has to be rebellious. We have to rebel against the tyranny of religion. We have to rebel against the dogmatism of religion, which have been used to seal the dehumanization of Africans by others and of Africans by Africans themselves. Yes. So this was how I started, thinking. And as I was reading, and even as of today, when I travel around the world, I tell my friends, there's something wrong. Yes, there's something wrong. Only that over the years, they have normalized inferiority of the Black race, inferiority of the African religions, inferiority of African deities, superiority of Western deities, Jesus or whatever they call them, superiority of the Arab prophets, Muhammad, Allah, and all that. So I ask myself, why? What makes one deity inferior to another? It's human beings. It is embodiment of those human prejudices, racism, and sense of superiority, and sense of lordship over others. Now,
even the gods take over the certain characteristics too. Of the peoples at the times. Yeah.
So what happens now is that I don't have issues with Westerners coming with Christianity. I don't have issues with that. I don't have issues with Arabs coming with Islam because that's what they know. That's their own word. Put all this religion on the table of free inquiry. Put all these claims on the table of free examination. Yes. Don't tell me that Christianity is a civilized mission or civilized religion. Then African traditional religion is fetish and barbaric and primitive. That's nonsense.
Right.
Sense. Don't tell me that Islam is superior to African traditional religion and that the Prophet Muhammad, you can't criticize it and all that. You can't, say anything. You say what you think about Prophet Muhammad and Islam. That's rubbish. That's nonsense. Okay? And for me, it is so unfortunate that Africans have internalized these mechanisms that have been used to dehumanize them and still dehumanize them over the years. So for me, being a humanist is not just all about being kind and compassionate, but also is challenging to religious dogmatism, religious teachings, religious authoritarianism that have been used over the years to hamper the progressive emancipation of the human spirit of Africans. And it is on that basis, for me, humanism is a form of liberation ideology. And the quest for humanism is a quest for dignity, is a quest for freedom, is a quest for my own humanity. Yes, because look, these religions did not, they don't embed my own equal humanity. No, they actually want subordination of my own humanity, sacrifice. And that's why you have human sacrifice. It is something that the religions condone. And you can hear that a lot of people are being killed because they say something critical of Muhammad. And you ask yourself, why? Why should I not say something critical of Muhammad? Why should I not say something critical of Jesus? Why should I not say something critical of the deities we created? Yes. So the outrage in me is that,
even now, I don't mean to cut you over. Even now, the criticism of Judaism.
Yes.
As you see some brothers getting economically lynched.
Yes,
but
exactly.
Anyway.
Exactly. Yes. And you see, it is not only physical violence that is being used as the penalty for criticizing religions, economic, social, political, sometimes academic positions.
Yeah,
yes.
Absolutely.
You get it? So that's why one could say, oh yeah, Islam, Muslims are, a bit on the extreme. There are other ways that religionists deliver lethal punishment on individuals just because they hold views and opinions, that are critical of religion. And the question is why? Meanwhile, these are religions that sent missionaries to Africa, that came to Africa to tell us our religions are primitive, our gods are deities or spirits or animists. And our religion is animist religion.
Spookism.
Yeah. They use all sorts of names and nomenclatures to demean the African norms and deities, then elevate their own. Their clerics are called priests. Our own are fetish, whatever. Fetish.
Just like the Dahomey Amazon women and all kinds of
exactly. So for me, so that's how I slowly, in the course of my training, I found out that religion is a scam. Yes, it's a scam. Yes, for individuals, if you draw meaning from it, that's fine. But when that meaning is such that it dehumanizes the next person, then it's no longer fine. It's obscenity. So we must be ready to check the excesses of religion. Absolutely. And that there's so much punishment attached to religion, I find that completely unacceptable. And that if there is anybody in this world today who should rebel against religious extremism, it's Africans. But are they doing that?
Absolutely.
No. No, they're not doing it. They have internalized religions that demean them. And they are even using the same religions to demean themselves. For me, it's a shame. And that is why humanism for me is not just a life stance, is also a mechanism for emancipation, for liberation, and a progressive freeing of the African spirit that has over the years been caged. African mind that over the years, been misrepresented. So for me, that is what, humanism, and that means, and that's how my own journey, has brought me to this point.
Absolutely. Beautiful, 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 brother. And I like the fact that you have mentioned, especially for an African and person of African descent in a diaspora. You got my sound?
Just a minute, please.
Yeah, no problem, no problem. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Family, we got Dr. Leo Igwe in the building, spitting that fire. We're gonna continue with the interview. I hope you guys like what you see. Hit that like button, hit subscribe. We're gonna keep building with our different continental and African diasporan brothers on the subjects that I believe is very important. As we got some questions to come at Dr. Leo about. He's been doing this from a long time. This ain't nothing new. He's been putting in that work from the grassroots. And he said some important things that I would like to get into for sure. And I've been waiting to talk with this brother.
I'm here.
Yeah, there you. Oh, it's all good.
I was running out of power.
You at home, just like what they say African Americans when they go to Africa. Welcome home, my brother. I've been waiting. Hey, listen, I know you've been on a lot of platforms.
Yeah,
and they got certain questions to you, and certain questions they can't not really get into because they're not African descent.
Okay.
And so certain, understandings and certain things don't really address their situation and their people so much. So they're not so much concerned in that. And you hit some topics. I want you to be free. And that's why I got it live. Ain't doing no editing. It's just raw and uncut. And that's how I like it. I like it very genuine and authentic conversation. You had hit some good points about your journey, some of your history, your background or whatever. But what I liked is, as you said, how especially you as an African and me as an African American diasporan is so important in this subject of skepticism, humanism, and using our reason and questioning things and criticizing things and part of our emancipation. And that you hit in Africa, and I heard you mention this several times, and I know of this, but in Africa, in Nigeria in particular, no, not Africa or the poorer countries, on how the religiosity, how religious, as you announced on your TED Talk, the Gallup poll shows still to this day that the most religious nations are the poorest nations.
Yes.
And a lot of those are in Africa.
Yeah.
And why is that, you say?
Okay.
I know it comes off common sense to most and to some, but then a lot of people say, why do, and Black folk, African folk, you can tie into another part of the question. We have in a lot of, I heard Malcolm X in some, I don't know if it was a speech or in the movie that Spike Lee has directed, when he mentioned about, in Black communities, we have whether it's the Caribbean, the continent, or in North America, whatever, how we have so many churches per square meter, and things like that, more than almost anybody on the planet. We have so many, and when it comes to spirituality, it's a different thing, that how it hits us, you know what I mean? Because we Black people, some of the most spiritual people on the planet, if you want to call it that, and religious people on the planet. We tend to, so how somebody said, I forgot where I heard this, it might have been Malcolm X again. We sometimes we end up out Muhammading Muhammad.
Yeah,
You understand? Or out
as
Christian.
Exactly. Yeah.
And I always notice this, real talk, when it comes to Judaism, I don't care what it is.
Yeah.
You'll find some people, a large group of people being, if you want to talk about the humility, if you want to talk about the peacefulness. Now we got wild stuff going on. Don't get me wrong, and that's what we're gonna get into. But we always tend to, you know, yeah, like I said, when it comes to the peace part of Islam, you'll find some nations are so peaceful, and they seem to get way more into certain elements of certain religions more than the so-called originators and creators.
Yes.
Well, purportedly, well, by some, but we can get into that another discussion. But yeah, and but anyway, so if you can kind of allude to or expound on that fact, that why does in Africa and a lot of the poorest nations, we are so damn religious, and it means, it comes off like it means so much to us more than any other people, race or people on the planet to this day.
Yeah, you see, this has so many dimensions or so many sides. There are so many sides to this question.
Absolutely.
So I will try to present a few sides. First of all, there is a line in Humanist Manifesto 2 that says, no deity will save us, we must save ourselves. Okay? He said, no deity. It didn't say one deity or it said none. African deities, non-African deities, Islamic deities, Christian deities, Hindu, all the deital religions. He says, all of them, none of them can save us. We must save ourselves. That is where the realization starts. And for me, the point I read this growing up, I said, that is a problem. You must realize that salvation, whether you want to talk about tackling poverty, backwardness, whatever, it lies on you. So that every African, every Nigerian, every Black person has to embrace this, that the salvation is not going to come from outside. All those pretentious claim to, oh yeah, let's go and save this part of the world. Let's go and bring democracy to this. No, they are driven by self-interest. Check them, whether it's political, whether it is religious. Yes, they brought Christianity and they were telling us, oh yeah, let's go and civilize Africans. What is it at the end of the day? Christianity is there's a whole lot of economy in Christianity that benefits the West. There's a whole lot of social philosophy in Christianity that benefits the West. Okay? And all that. There's so much entitlement. So much of African lands are being controlled directly and indirectly from the West, just because of Christianity alone. The same thing applies to Islam. They didn't bring Islam because, oh yeah, they love Africans so much, they need to believe in the prophet. No.
They always be reminding you of Bilal and all these other people. But then when you really get into the historical, as a historian, you start to learn other things. That's another story.
It is all about control. It's all about manipulation. It's all about economy. It is political economy, nothing more. Okay? Now, Africans need to realize this. And to the extent they realize it, that is the extent they will get liberated, whether it's poverty or whether it is social dehumanization or situations. But as long as they don't, the problem persists. So there is an African side to all these problems. I'm not denying it. Yes, there is an African side, and Africans must fix it. There's one thing they said that charity begins at home. If we need to address this problem, we must go home. We must do some introspection. And it is when we have taken care of that we can now contend what comes from outside, because we can't live independently. We can't. There are always countries depend on countries, continents depend on continents, races depend on other races, ethnic groups depend on other ethnic groups. But the question is this: on what terms? Who dictates the terms? Africans largely have lost the power to significantly dictate the terms and call the shots when it comes to religion. So you will see Africans now, when you pray in the name of the local god, they say, that's a demon. Yes, the local gods are demon. The real gods are the Mohammedan gods, are the Christian gods, are the foreign gods. So that is where we undid ourselves. And we have to start undoing it. You get it? We have to find a way to. So for me, the problem, let's first of all, get inside and solve it inside, then embrace the right disposition towards life. Yes, we have to stop, identifying, focusing and getting fixated on the slavery, inferiority. No, the inferiority starts from inside. So we need to liberate ourselves. We need to embrace the positive, progressive ideas. We need to, stop seeing ourselves as also inferior, anything associated with Africans as inferior. No, it is not. Okay, so I believe that is where the poverty starts. It is in the mind, it is in our own psychology, it is in our own self-perception. Yes. So, and which is a product of so many years of our internalizing our own sense of inferiority. So that is why we are where we are now. But change this philosophy.
Trauma.
Yes.
Yeah.
Change this philosophy.
Generational trauma. Yeah.
Yes. Change this philosophy. Embrace something more progressive. Become assertive. Become rebellious. Challenge and resist any attempt to make you look inferior. And begin to relaunch yourself from the basis of dignity. I think that is how the program, this process will begin to change. It's not something that will, change automatically. It is going to be a gradual process, but we need to, first of all, remove some of those norms we have internalized that make us lose confidence in ourselves, see ourselves as poor, barbaric, naked,
savages and
savages. Yes. No, we are not. We are not. Savagery or that attitude is embedded in all races. Is in all races. So it depends on how you manage it and contain it.
Absolutely. Look at the German tribes. Some over here in Scandinavia. I mean, they was looked at as savages too.
Even let me just look at what is going on in Ukraine. Look at what is going on in Ukraine. Imagine if an African country were to be in the position and be killing another African country that way. Oh, they will say, oh yeah, look at these barbarians.
Yeah.
Do you get what I'm saying? So
absolutely.
That is why I see it as human. And the effort to racialize it, identify with people of color or people who are black, that is where we make the mistake. And the more mistake is for us to internalize that this is and see ourselves as such. It's a human phenomenon and we need to address it. But like I said, we have to start with ourselves. And we have to begin to rebel against some of these misrepresentations, some of the presentations that have been used to demean African and to get Africans to demean themselves.
I like that. And I also like the fact that you as you're talking about that, you also are being honest and real, even when it comes to the so-called African traditions and religions too, because a lot of brothers in the diaspora, sometimes for us to connect back with the motherland, the continent, they tend to, some of them tend to shun the major Western religions, some of the so-called woke conscious people now, which is a good, which is a positive thing in many ways. And they look and start, into these African traditions and religions. And you even mentioned how some of these even have superstitious things that we should be aware of and things like that. But like I said, but you also mentioned that if you were to, compare to other major world religions, what's so much the difference between the superstitious activity and stories and things, events that happen in these world religions as well. So and as an African American, I've said this before, that if I had to follow some sort of religion, why wouldn't I follow something that has more of people or characters that kind of seem and look like me and represent me more, even though they do have some superstitious things. But with that being said, even those get looked at in a critical eye. So I was going to get into when it comes to witchcraft, and also even how ancestral worship, on your thoughts on that, because you got a lot of brothers out here, when it comes to like libations and the ancestor, whether worship or just a revere or respect towards your ancestors or whatever, and things like that. Yeah, I kind of wanted to get your thoughts on that, and also about witchcraft, and also when it comes to like ancestral worship or in libations, because some people make it seem to be very I don't know.
I get
you get what I'm saying, because sometimes it's hard for like certain people to see a black atheist or humanist or skeptic talk about being anti-conspiracy theorist in a way, anti-religion and spirituality, yet sometimes like I see myself sometimes even see that connection between, I don't want to call it ancestral worship, but just memorization of your ancestors. And how do you
you see, I mean, somebody has contacted me and told me about the fact that many African American atheists are inclined towards this African traditional beliefs, or try to get identified with it and all that, of course, in the quest for that cultural connection.
Right.
Now, I have maybe, let me say two.
And you can be honest. Because
that's
what we're here for.
Yeah, I just want to let you know this. Okay. Number one, I don't want to tell African Americans how to relate, because you see, I'm a Nigerian African. Okay. And my experience is around Nigerian African. There are certain things I said.
But that's why my bad to cut you off, but that's why you play a crucial role to a lot of diasporans. And that's why when you come across the screen, that's why I really pay attention and look and see, he's when it comes to this larger humanist movement. Yeah.
Yes. So now there may be aspects of their experience, there may be aspects of their life situation I might not capture, or my own propositions may not capture. And to that extent, I will tell them, okay, you are there, you need to tell us what to do. No, number one, that's it. So when I speak, I'm not really dictating. I'm just trying to say what I think. Okay. First of all, what I want to tell African American brothers and sisters, especially those of them who identify, with our philosophies of humanism and skepticism. Are we going to look backward or forward?
Forward ever, backward never, man. Come on. Straight up.
Okay. Yes. Now, I want them to look forward from wherever they are. Yes. We can only take from the past the much we can take that can allow us look forward. That's number one. So from my perspective, I don't think that trying to replace the Western deity with African deity, you are still replacing deities. And like I said, no deity will save us. No deity, whether it's African traditional deity, whether it's Western deity, whether it's Hindu deity, it's just like American Indians going to say, okay, we don't want Christianity, we're going to get back and resurrect the Hindu deities from India and bring them and all that. It is all playing that same role and function. And that is why I said, as humanists, as atheists, as free thinkers, let's look forward. Yes. The joy, the glory lies in the future and in our ability to make creative, innovative, and progressive use of our past experiences. Now, that's number one. Number two, what we have today in terms of in the West somehow is traditions, cultural practices without God. So can we begin to envision African traditional practices, cultural Africans, just like they say cultural Christians? A lot of humanists call themselves cultural Anglicans, or like Richard Dawkins, we talk about culturally Anglican. Hey, African American brothers and sisters, can you be culturally African? In other words, without those deities, without those superstitions? Can you, because sometimes they call humanism a kind of religion without God.
Right,
okay?
right.
So can you practice, if you are inclined to practicing African traditional religion without God? Definitely, it has a place within the spectrum.
Right.
So what I'm saying is this. I don't think that going back to start worshiping African deities is the way forward. For me, it's the way backward.
I agree. Right. And I agree with you totally. And there's some that can clearly understand that. But how about like certain, not necessarily deities, but when they talk about ancestral, I don't want to call it worship, but ancestral, you know, when they give libation and ancestral recognition or you know, but yeah, even that can be. You get real critical. You get what I'm saying? If you get real critical, they say, "Okay, are you praying? Because if you're praying, who are you talking? You know."
I get where I go.
That little part, yeah.
Yes, I get it. Now, one of the Western philosophers I like is Bertrand Russell. Okay, I read his books. I enjoy some of the things he's saying. You know, because when I read his thoughts, I'm happy. They make me happy. So, in quote, I have respect for him. I may not agree with him perfectly. Okay, I may go for a memorial, a lecture. Okay, so what I'm saying is this: if libation, the idea of libation, could be done like a way we remember people in the past who impressed us, who had a lot of influence on our lives, or whom we feel more connected, why not?
No.
That's why I said we need to be very creative and innovative and forward-looking.
Right.
Because there's always a tendency of this idea of, oh, let's go back to the African forest and start wearing some African clothes and lie on the ground and, you know, start doing some of these things that's, you know, somehow, you know, I find a bit suspect.
No,
what I'm saying is this: can we be very creative and innovative in trying to connect with people of our type? You call them ancestors. Look, Bertrand Russell is an ancestor when it comes to the Western culture. You know, a lot of people who died in the past, but they admired them because of certain things they do. They don't worship them. Okay? Can we celebrate our ancestors without worshiping them?
Yeah, correct.
Yeah. So if we have a way to do it, you know, that's why I said it takes our own sense of innovation and creativity, you know, to say this is what we're doing. And some people might say, but but this is a kind of worship. It depends on how you define it. Like I said, I don't worship. I don't worship. There are a lot of people like Tai Sholari of Nigeria. I admire the man a lot. And I always try to celebrate, you know, the day, the memory and things like that. Do I worship him? The answer is no.
Right.
I can do certain things in his honor.
Right.
You know, in the honor of his memory, or just to remember him, you know, to acknowledge the role he played in life. And I can visit the grave and pause and have some words. You know,
just like you see Europeans go, you know, revere certain Greek philosophers and go back to their works and build upon that, like that. So it's okay. Yeah.
You get it. But when you begin to tell me that, oh yeah, this guy used to talk to me and he said I should tell, you know,
that's when you get
that's when you get over the fence.
Absolutely.
You get it. So that's why I said, you know, we can find a way to reinvent our culture looking forward. I keep saying it. That's one. Okay. Now, let me go to the issue of witchcraft. First of all,
would you consider voodoo witchcraft?
No. And that's a misrepresentation. That's why I said there's so many things I'm gonna say. You see, if you say voodoo is witchcraft, then Christianity is witchcraft, Islam is witchcraft.
Because you got Santeria, you got all these other elements too.
Okay. And this is a mistake that was made by the anthropologists who came here. They conflated everything and they call it witchcraft. In fact, I read a book in the course of my doctoral program. This book had two titles. First of all, they call it traditional religion in Ivory Coast, and later they called it witchcraft in Ivory Coast.
Wow.
The same text, the same material, I mean, witchcraft is not African traditional religion. No, it's a misrepresentation.
Right,
and it is that same misrepresentation I decried from the beginning. And you know what? I also don't blame people. The thing is that when you are misrepresented, what do you do? Yes. If somebody misrepresents you, do you accept it? Do you internalize it? So that's why I said the fault is on us. And that's why today I tell Western anthropologists, you misrepresented issues. But that's okay. Acknowledge that there are limitations in your distance. Don't think it's the standard. Don't think it's the authority. It is your perspective. And it is prone to being criticized and to improve upon.
But before you start criticizing, let's get it.
Whatever you call.
Yeah. But like you said, before you start criticizing, let's get it accurate first.
Yes. Exactly. Okay. So sometimes you also propose in order to criticize, because already you have a criticism in your mind. So that criticism helps you to present it in such a way that it will fit your critical lens. Okay. So first of all, what you are calling voodoo, the people, do they call that voodoo? That's a question. Because the way you represent something also signifies the way you value it. Is also a value system. So you call one religion, you call the other one voodoo. Anytime they mention voodoo, it's like, this thing that people of low religious intelligence practice. Okay? Yeah. So, religions are in grades. The West, Islam is a religion. This one is voodoo. I don't understand what it even means. So now, you have to present this thing according to the people. That's why I said I read history where I am misrepresented. My culture is misrepresented. Absolutely. And part of my humanist scholarship is to represent myself and tell people what I think, not only of the African religion, but also of other religions. Because that is a liberty they have exercised over the years. And I have to exercise that liberty, and that is going to be part of my humanist activism and scholarship. So, back to witchcraft before we derail, okay? So, witchcraft is what they use to explain African religion, African sense of the transcendental, African sense of the world. Yes. So that you actually can't make any distinction between even African medicine and witchcraft. And African traditional healers are called witch doctors. Is it only witch doctoring they do? The answer is no. Many of them depended on herbal roots and some of the early stages of medical forms. Absolutely. And this is what they were using. Like my grandfather was a traditional healer. He wasn't only making rituals, he was also using herbs, trying to make, because that's how human being, how we got where we are today. Trial and error in medicine, trial and error in everything, cooking and getting fire and all that.
Tell me about it.
We have been doing that. And even trial and error today, we have elevated it and call it science. What do we do in laboratories? You know, trial and error? Good. So now, what happens there is that they were traditional healers. But now, because they called everything African is witchcraft, it is difficult to really make a distinction between the contributions we have made in history, in terms of technology, in terms of medicine, in terms of, in other aspects of life. So that is where the misrepresentation started. Now, they brought Christianity, which they think it is superior to whatever Africans believe. And meanwhile, within the Christian history, there was a witch hunting. Yes.
Absolutely.
Do you get it? So now, bringing the Christianity which Africans embraced, of course, over the years, through all sorts of means, both structural violence, physical violence, and of course, verbal and cultural violence, people have embraced that. But my challenge again is not only that these religions were introduced, but that Africans are now have embraced it to the point they are now using it against themselves. Yes. So why can't we make that distinction? So what we are doing now, campaigning against witch persecution, is that we are campaigning against a cultural trend introduced over the years, which Africans are using now to undo themselves, to harm themselves, to persecute themselves. and all that. And this is exactly what we're experiencing, not only on the Christian side, but also on the Muslim side. And they have also embraced this idea that everything traditional and African, everything indigenous to African is devilish, is demonic, is fetish. And by so doing, they keep presenting anything African as inferior, as barbaric, and as native. And this was how Christian anthropologists, Western anthropologists, and of course the Arab counterparts have presented everything African. So the problem is that Africans have internalized this witchcraft norm to the point now that they are now acting in line with the people who introduced that. Oh, see them. They are still in the early modern Europe. That's where they are. Okay. So, but is that the only picture? That's how there are rationalist Africans. There are people like us, humanist Africans, who are still here. But of course, our voices are not heard very often. We are not platformed. Okay. And that is why I'm happy.
For many reasons as well.
For many reasons. You know why? Because they think it's not African. A lot of people tell me I'm not African. I get furious. I am African. What do you mean by being African? I am African. There is no God, no African God. All these things are our creations, what we are using to tyrannize over. But they will tell you, oh, you are not African. You are not thinking like an African. How does
I wonder what they really mean when if they say you're out of your African mind. Huh?
Yes, you get what I'm saying? So already they have a representation. They have what they call an African mind, which is nonsense. There's nothing like an African mind. There's nothing like a Western mind. There's nothing like an Arabic mind. No, these are creations they are using to demean people, put people in boxes where they belong. So that is exactly what we're doing. And so there are Africans who don't believe in witches. But of course, the media will privilege the witch believing ones and say, oh yeah, look at it. I told you it's African.
Right,
okay.
Right.
Now they don't give a lot of platform. That's why today I'm campaigning to get on many forums, get on many platforms, get out there and let them that we are here. Non-witchcraft believing Africans are here, and we are fighting, we are struggling, we are campaigning, we are mobilizing to make sure that we do away with this phenomenon that has been associated with Africans over the century.
Made me want to say Ashe, but I'm gonna leave that alone. On a side note, quick question: do you consider yourself a Pan-Africanist?
Well, I always don't want to answer questions like yes or no.
I know you don't. I know you don't like those labels. Okay, and
no,
guess what?
What?
Guess what?
Okay.
I was ready for you because I knew you was gonna say something like that. So by Pan-Africanism, all I mean, I would consider you as one. All I mean is the principle or advocacy of the political union of all the indigenous inhabitants of Africa, or the idea that peoples of African descent have common interest and should be unified. That's all I mean. Must I repeat that? I can repeat that one more time.
Yeah, please repeat it. I need to think about that.
Yeah. So all I mean by that, as a dictionary, I don't know if it was from Oxford or Webster, but the principle or advocacy of the political union of all the indigenous inhabitants of Africa, or they say the idea that peoples of African descent have common interest and should be unified. The idea that peoples of African descent have common interest and should be unified. And I think it's more so on the unification, striving for unification of African peoples worldwide. Of course, humans, but unfortunately, we got this thing called white supremacy and racism that still exists to this day. Unfortunately, and maybe if it ended tomorrow, I always say, if it ended tomorrow, I would stop posting about anti-racist things on my Facebook, for example. But yeah, unfortunately, it still exists. So I do continue as yourself to try to find ways and things to help in this discussion, in the re-education of how we think, not just for us, but for Europeans and people worldwide, on how they think about Africans or even other people, indigenous people or whoever, women or whoever. But yeah, but I know that when you get the label thing is not a thing that you like to
well,
but so I just meant, like I said, what I mean when I guess I'm assuming what people mean by that, and not so much on the political side, you know what I mean? But like the ideas, simply put, the ideas of that peoples of African descent should be unified, regardless of religion, um, whatever nation that they live in, or whatever. Do you, I don't know, believe in the concept of all African people of African descent be unified in some sort of way, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, well, I think people have asked me this kind of question,
Not in the white spaces. I know in white spaces they haven't, but you should have known I was going to ask you something like that.
Yeah, people have asked me that question, and I try to say, look, there is nothing wrong in coming together as a common front, okay? Right. And my question there is, as long as this idea of coming together is going to help us move forward. Remember what I told you about the idea of African Americans coming out sometimes back down here to Africa and all that. They want to go back. Their sense of homeland, sometimes I'm not very comfortable with it, because I want African Americans, who are gonna talk about if we can come together and begin to envision what the world is going to be like, not just the African world, what the world is going to be like, and begin to work towards it,
right,
and begin to make contribution towards it, and begin to think ahead, and not be the prisoners of our past. I said this in my TED talk, okay? Because too often we're always imprisoned by our past, and that's why I tell everybody, white, black, in between. I'm like every other. I mean, I did my doctorate in Germany, and I was in the same class, the same program, white Europeans and all that, and we were all struggling with the course and the program, like every other person. And everybody was sweating and trying to get it right or get something done and defend and all that. So I didn't see anything that makes me either inferior. So what am I saying? If it is coming together, that will enable us, liberate ourselves from.
I think it's more in a sense, and where I'm looking at it is, and not everybody, but as like if you had a child, right? You had a fully functional child that had opportunities everywhere. Then you had one that was disabled, and in many different ways, and wasn't able to get this because of certain things. Like structural, systemic racism, things, institutional racism, things like that, or whatever that a lot of us go through, that you acknowledged. So I think it, in a sense, where some people will, of course, go into school and you talk and have many different people, many different friends. We're humanists. We all, for humankind, not just black, but I think in a sense where. Like the example I gave you, we are catching hell more than it seemed like any other race or culture for the most part, or globally. And so sometimes some people say, well, why wouldn't I try to unify with the most marginalized people as myself, as we are trying to progress and go towards this greater thing, of course. But in that, sometimes you have to turn around and do extra work and I don't know, more things for this marginalized group. So in some ways it depends on, like, I think it's important, like the way you see yourself as a Pan-Africanist per se, if you consider yourself that. But I do agree as well. Yeah, it's to put labels to everything is not always a good thing, because somebody can pigeonhole you and believe that you're just, you know, I think like you said, long as it's about moving forward and not backward is very important. But I do have to, I live in reality, and in reality, I do see a lot of here in Norway. You have a lot of black and brown people here are getting it the worst in every facet, economically, employment, yeah, and in all kind of ways here, um, that things aren't distributed evenly and fairly and treated fairly, and that's globally. And so I can't ignore that reality, that fact. At the same time, moving towards that future, even though I know it's not going to happen in my lifetime.
Well, I don't. I have learned not to sound that way. That
Yeah.
of this.
No, I get that.
I've learned that. Okay, you know why? When I started the humanist movement in the 90s, we were not using email. We don't have Facebook. We don't have social media. And when we send letters to the Norwegian Humanist Association, we don't get the reply, let's say, in a month or two. So in other words, if you want to get, you know what they do those days, if you send a ship is traveling, it's going to stay 6 months. So each day you keep, making sure that a ship leaves so that the next day they will be arriving that way. So we were sending letters and expecting that they will be arriving after 2 months, after 3 months. But today, what is the case? Within an hour, we can exchange as many emails as we think. And so what am I trying to say? I still think that's why I said, yeah, one could say, oh yeah, it is not realistic. You have your head in the clouds when you say things like that. But I still think that there are things positive about life we can't even envision from where we are now. Well, but what is important is that we get focused positively. Okay, even amidst all the difficulties and all the challenges. I said this in my TED talk again. There are a lot of things I have seen today, which I never envisaged in the 90s. I never even envisioned how
you definitely got to have optimism for sure, and not be so pessimistic and everything. But I don't necessarily feel certain people. There are some people that are like that. That just talk about race relations all day, every day. Some people may think that's what I do all the time. I do mention race a lot, but I'm not as pessimistic as people may seem. I am optimistic. I do look towards everybody going towards that thing. And I've always said, unfortunately, I address certain things because of reality, what's going on still. So, because usually, I don't know. That's a hard, balance. I guess balance. I guess.
Yes. I also want to add, number one, Africans. There isn't like African. There are Africans. Like in your case, some are living in Norway, some are living in the UK. Yeah. And again, there's this thing they talk about, they call intersectionality.
Yeah.
There are Africans who are rich, there are those who are poor down the line. Yes, I get what you're saying by saying that if you go across the world, I notice it too when I travel, that people, you are on the low cadre, socially low cadre society, always black and people and all that. So what I try to do is I ask myself, why is that the case? And to what extent what can I do? While I try to complain about and tell people this is the reality out there, I also ask myself, to what extent am I contributing to this reality? And is there anything I can do? Like now in my family, as I'm growing up, I try to tell them the importance of having a high self-esteem, importance of being creative, importance of being critical, importance of working very hard, importance of reading. Reading liberated me. Yes. And I did this in very rural communities. Why? Because I discovered that the more I read, the more I participate in so many wars and cultures, even without traveling there. I was able to connect with the situations of many people. So Absolutely. What are those values that we could embrace that could also help us climb the social ladder with some kind of confidence? So I think that there is a two-way approach to it. And I think that when we use that way and then look positively, work hard, persist, and continue to, kind of strongly and obstinately, hold on to that our vision, working towards it. Somehow, those things they call accidentals. You can have that kind of experience that things might turn, and you find yourself at the right place and all that. Like I said, I understand what you're saying, and I feel it every day. Even when you come to Nigeria, it's not the best of country. A lot of things going on wrong here. But I still tell people around me, I say, look, if you really begin to work towards the future, have this positive outlook, work very hard, read, understand, improve your mind, you might not be feeling the effects like when you don't do that. So do your own bit. African people, you also have some contribution to do. Do your own bit while we continue to see what we can do to remove those structures that are also limiting our efforts to liberate ourselves.
And that's definitely a good way of seeing things and looking at things. Absolutely. Let me see if I had some other questions. So I don't want to hold you too long. Yeah, I've heard that you well, your life mission. You said your life mission somewhere. You said is to end the witchcraft accusations and persecution within Africa. I see that you've been posting on your Facebook a lot about that, like these witch camps and things like that recently. And then also I've seen something where it says day 919 today of Nigeria's shame, and with that, are you? And then you talk about the repeal judgment of Mubarak Bala.
Yeah.
Was he incarcerated for 919 days or something like that?
Yes. They
Okay.
arrested him in 2020 because he made a Facebook post. He didn't kill anybody.
Wow.
He didn't, burn down a house. He didn't attack. He didn't harm anybody. Just he made a Facebook post, and some people were unhappy with that, and they reported to the police, and the police arrested him, and eventually they jailed him for 24 years. So we are fighting to get him. And you see, that's exactly what I was talking about.
Okay. My bad. All because of it was like a Facebook. It was like a tweet or a Facebook post.
A Facebook post. That was all about Prophet of Islam, Muhammad.
Got you.
Yeah. So some people felt angry, and they reported to the police.
Got
you. This is in a country where the police can't even do the basic work of law enforcement. A lot of robbery, a lot of kidnapping, and a lot of banditry. A lot of extrajudicial killing, crimes here and there, and they will tell you, "Oh, we don't have enough resources," but they have resources to go and arrest somebody who made a Facebook post, and they got him. They disappeared him for several months before they now brought him to a court and convicted him. So misplaced priorities. That's where we are.
And is the corruption still running rampant there? From what I hear on some reports, you believe even in the major cities, there are a lot of corruption still is a huge problem.
A lot of what?
Corruption.
Of course, yes. You see, poverty, where there's a lot of poverty, and social inequality, it is difficult not to have corruption because a lot of people will continue to find any way to survive.
Right.
If you are put in any position, it is a survivalist approach. You are not there to manage the position. You are there to see a way to use that to protect yourself and influence. So that is why we have it. So
as we do here too and everywhere else. And so I'm just But you were about to go on expound a little bit about Mubarak Bala. So he's been incarcerated for about 919 days now.
Yes.
And you're on a campaign because you want him to be freed, and also you're talking about ending blasphemy laws.
Yeah.
And can you expound on a couple of those?
Yeah. You see, what happens is that, look, the Christian missionaries, Arab jihadists, they came and they told Africans, okay, your religion is not the good one. Look at the good one. Okay. They were critical of African traditional religions.
Yeah.
And nobody accused them of blasphemy. Okay. Now, when their religion now took hold, they now, enforce the law. They now put in place the blasphemy law and say, don't criticize our religion. We criticize your own, but don't criticize our own. Yeah. If you criticize Islam, they put you in jail. But Islamic clerics are going around denouncing homosexuals, criticizing non-believers, and all that. The same thing with Christian clerics. So the blasphemy law is actually not blasphemy is not an all-encompassing blasphemy, which is actually meaningless. It's actually when you say something that offend the Islamic sensibilities in areas where Muslims are dominant. So you don't criticize Islam. So that's exactly the case. So we can't have a constitution that guarantees freedom of religion and belief, freedom of expression, and then also criminalizes critical views that are critical of religion and all that. So it is incompatible. Blasphemy law and free speech, they are incompatible.
Right.
So, and that's exactly what we have. And the case of Mubarak is a clear example of how blasphemy laws is being used to undermine free speech and freedom of religion or belief that are guaranteed in our constitution.
Right, right. What is this? I see this hashtag symbol. Where is Diata? What is that?
Yeah, that was also another journalist that got disappeared. Nobody knows whether he's alive or dead.
For how long? Since how long ago?
I think that has been going on for maybe
years.
For about 4 years, for about 5 years or less.
And I do agree with one of the posts that you put with the philosopher Karl Popper. The growth of knowledge. What do you say? The growth of knowledge is entirely upon our entirely upon our disagreement.
Yes, yeah, because we are losing it here in Nigeria. I don't know about elsewhere. People want you to agree, they want you to conform.
Yeah.
They want you to comply. They don't want you to consent. They don't want dissent. They don't want disagreement. They don't want debate. They don't want you to object. Yes, and on many occasions, new knowledge emerge out of contestations of ideas.
Right.
Out of the debating culture. So, but unfortunately, in my country here, people are doing away with the debating culture. It's a culture of blind belief, blind followership, and conformity. So
in your opinion, you think it's kind of getting worse there with against open atheists and also the Boko Haram thing going on there? Do you think that the situation is getting worse or stagnant
the situation is getting worse? And let me just give you an example. I just returned from a conference on religion, and during the conference, somebody made a remark that a bus driver, a Muslim bus driver, wanted to stop midway along the highway to pray. You hired a bus driver, and midway the bus driver said, "I would like to pray." And we were discussing it, and one Muslim guy said, "Oh yeah, he wanted to pray so that in case there's an accident, he would go and meet his creator." Wow. I was like, so I made this kind of very facial expression and all that. And there was a security man who was at the meeting, and he sent me a note. He sent me a note that I should be mindful of my utterances and body language. That was an academic conference.
A low-key threat, we call that.
Exactly. Okay, so here we are having a situation where even within the academic world, you don't debate, and all that. If you profile any opinion that is critical of Islam, especially Islam, or Christianity, but especially of Islam, immediately people, you could be threatened, you could be harassed. If you're not careful, you could be killed. In fact, we have a case where a young girl made a post on WhatsApp platform critical of Islam, and they lynched her in Sokoto in northern Nigeria. They lynched her just for that remark she made on a WhatsApp platform. So the situation is getting worse. And that's why we say we need to highlight these things to draw attention to it.
And that's why I seen one of the articles you put out, I don't know, it was Daily Star or whatever, talking about the witch camps or something like that, with even minors, the survivors,
yes.
a couple of survivors that you were standing with or whatever, of somebody, a couple of minors being accused of witchcraft or whatnot.
Yes. Yeah. We have that problem in Nigeria. We also have it in other places.
Right.
And it is also part and parcel of the fact that we lack a very robust culture of debate, a culture of challenging beliefs, culture of inquiry, culture of critical examination. So as long as these trends and values are not celebrated, we will continue to face all these problems in terms of witchcraft belief, this kind of persecution of innocent people in the name of witchcraft.
All right. I have like 10 more minutes of us. I want to get into real quick the James Randi Foundation. How did that come about in a short brief?
Well, I've always admired James Randi because of what he called the skeptical challenge.
Yeah.
There was this I
remember that. Was it up to $1 million or no?
Yes, $1 million.
Yeah, it went up to $1 million
because I think that every culture, every country should have something like that.
Absolutely.
You get it. So and somehow I use it, but in a very small micro version of it by challenging people. Like during the COVID-19 pandemic, here, some of the pastors, one of them came and said that he could heal COVID-19 patients. Yeah, and he made the claim. So I had to challenge him. So I was inspired by this idea that people who make these claims should not just be allowed to get away with them. They should be challenged.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I was inspired by his work, and of course they reached out to me, and I was also very excited, to be, admitted as a fellow. So I worked closely with them, and like I said, it was like this platform I told you. I don't used to have a lot of platform where we can speak freely.
Did you ever come out to Florida to meet him?
Yes, I came to Las Vegas. No, I came to Las Vegas.
Oh, he was in. Okay, true.
They used to have a meeting in Las Vegas. I met him.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay. And so you've been how long have you guys kind of linked up, or you linked up with them before he passed? How many years?
I think we were linked up for maybe 5 to 10 years before.
Okay.
Yeah.
So for my people tuning in or who's gonna tune in later, you just Google Leo Igwe. You can just say Google me, and then he'll pop up in a lot of spaces on YouTube. Just up the top of the search of YouTube, there's the Atheist Republic Cape Town interview, the Humanist UK, the Atheist Alliance International, James Randi, the TED Talks, the Secular Student Alliance. You also linked up with the Black Non-Believers, Mandisa Thomas, who I interviewed as well.
Okay, great. Yeah. So, like I said, it's very exciting. We are getting Black free thought platforms where we'll begin to discuss this. And let me not try to, maybe. Let me not belittle what you said before. Like I said, this is the kind of Pan-Africanism or Blackism, however you want it.
I get what you're saying. Right.
Yeah.
Or unification or
exactly. I mean, around common values, values that are positive and progressive. I was very happy with Mandisa Thomas, what she's doing at Black Non-Believers.
Absolutely. She was the first Black of note atheists that I interviewed.
Exactly. Okay. Okay. And there's also some association of Black humanists coming up in we have them in the UK and all that. Clive is also a good person. Maybe you might interview him one of these days and all that. He's doing fantastic work and all that. Try it also. So this is the kind of thing, because too long they have not associated this thing with the Black culture.
Absolutely. It was hard to find a Black face. I'm like, what? Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. So And it's not really that they are not rational thinking black people all this while, okay? But I think that there have been so many factors. So I want to see this change. So that's why I'm happy with what Mandisa is doing. I'm happy, of course, what you're doing. And I think that
representation matters for sure.
Exactly.
Because because when we read, this has been going, we had a lot of rational thinkers from a long time once we really study and get into it. So don't get me wrong, when I see black faces, it's like, wow, because it's the representation of us isn't so high at all.
Exactly. So that's really, I find that very exciting, and it can help us focus. There are some black specific issues, okay, and we can get into the culture, zoom into the culture, and understand how these things are happening, how irrationalism is connecting to poverty, is connecting to so many other social issues, without being accused of racism. There's always a tendency that when you criticize,
we see it right now. Some of it I understand, but some of it is like, come on. We're going overboard. They starting a dog pile on us.
So I think that there's a need for us to look critically in our culture and look at how irrationalism is also connected to some of the issues and problems that are associated with the black culture.
Right. Man, so that we're gonna leave off on this note. Are there any things that you can mention that you're kind of working on now, or is it mainly the advocacy work now in Nigeria, or is there anything that is upcoming, or whether any talks or any speeches that you remember or that you know about? Because I know you do a lot.
Well, I think that for now I'm trying to develop so many projects and programs. One of them is the advocacy for late witches, which we're saying we want to use this to end the stigma, this thing that has been associated with African culture for too long. So it is a response, to end, witchcraft accusation and witch persecution in the region and all that. So what I'm doing is to mobilize and connect with all like-minded people across Africa and beyond, so that we begin to register our message. This is now a campaign not introduced to civilize us. This is something we're trying to use to grow and improve our own culture and all that. So it is led by us. It is something that affects us. It is something we really want to solve. So that's what we're doing at that end. But I also found out that it's not enough, campaigning against witch persecution. I'm also working to develop critical thinking books. I want to introduce critical reasoning as a subject in the schools. So I have registered a non-governmental organization, Critical Thinking Social Empowerment Foundation. So what we're doing is we organize lectures, critical thinking workshops for teachers, primary school teachers. We are focusing because I think, and we think, that we have to start very early to get our people in Black communities, in African communities, in Nigerian communities, to begin to think critically. Because look, religious indoctrination starts very early. The first kind of teaching many children in Nigeria are exposed to Quranic indoctrination, biblical indoctrination, catechism. So many of them find it difficult to think critically. So I'm thinking that critical thinking should also start very early, so that it can position, young Nigerians, Africans, and people in Black community, to wrestle, to manage, and meaningfully make use of their mind, when they grow up in the faith. So I'm campaigning for the promotion of critical thinking and introduction of critical thinking, in schools. So I'm developing writing some books for primary schools. That's my focus at the moment.
Absolutely. And I would like to keep in contact with you on any other future projects, and also to shoot you some messages time to time on some thoughts that I have of my own, that I'll send you messages about, that maybe we can link in the future for some reason. On that note, your social media contacts, do you have that on memory to note, if anybody that wants to whether they contact you or look at some of your
I think
mainly on
apart from Facebook, actually
I think you like me. I'm old school, man. I'm mainly on Facebook.
The social media, they take a lot of my time.
No, I hear you. He in the real world, unlike me. I post a lot of articles and stuff, but this guy is really out there on the ground, doing the work, so he don't have much time. But mainly on Facebook, I'm kind of
Facebook
on
and
Facebook,
also on Twitter.
but that TikTok and all that Snapchat, I'm not all over that stuff, so I don't even know how to work it. But you said so Facebook and
Twitter, at Leo Igwe, you can get us, or at Alleged for our advocacy work. So you can get me there. I think, or email. If you Google my name and check my email address, you could also send me emails. I'm much more comfortable with email because it gives me time to think and respond and all that. So, but you can also send me Facebook messages or reach me out on Twitter, which I could also check whenever I have some time. Yeah.
Right. All right, now I appreciate you. We finally got the connection and everything, and so we stretched the time a bit, and I appreciate your time and effort and everything. And I hope this is beneficial for everybody, the real Nordic Black family in the world, whoever gets to watch this interview. Don't forget to like and subscribe and check out Dr. Leo Igwe, and I will drop the couple links to him underneath this video. All right, you enjoy the rest of your. It's the same time. I think is it noon?
Yes, noon.
It's noon. It's noon here in Norway and noon in Nigeria. Go figure. So it's awesome. But anyway, I appreciate you, and until next time.
Yeah. Thanks. Okay.
All right.
Bye. Okay. Bye.
All right. Bye.
Yeah.
That was